Yes, early week 1 waiver wire ads. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. There are 3 very specific reasons why I am giving you waiver wire ads for week 1. First, a lot can change since you drafted. There might be higher upside players on waivers than what you have on your bench. If you drafted players who are currently injured, you might also have extra bench spots to play with. Number 2, we are not necessarily adding for this week. We are adding to get ahead of guys who could be very appealing waiver wire ads after week 1. And number 3, a lot of people, myself included, play in leagues where you drafted in July or early August and your waivers have been locked and they don't unlock until this week. Things have changed and players could be injured, so you need to pivot. So I am giving you my top 10 waiver wire ads for week 1. Let's dive in. With extreme depth at quarterback this year, investing in late-round quarterbacks and taking a streaming strategy is a very viable option this year. If you are looking for a streaming option this week, Michael Penix Jr. is the perfect addition. Tampa Bay did make efforts to improve their defense this offseason, but the NFC South matchups tend to get a bit chaotic, hence the 47.5 point total with Tampa as a 2-point favorite. Both teams are expected to score. Penix showed promise last season, and not so surprisingly, his best performance was an NFC South matchup against Carolina. Getting that experience at the end of the season should carry well into feeling comfortable in week 1. He is a solid streaming option. Brenton Strange is another fine streaming option, particularly due to matchup. Again, we are picking on the NFC South here. I do expect development for the Carolina defense as the season goes on, but in week 1, prepare for an easy matchup. Now, Carolina was clearly better against the pass than the run last season, but that can often benefit tight ends who can serve as a nice short area target when a defense's pass strength leans more towards the secondary. I wouldn't expect a significant level of volume for Strange this week because Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter should be the first looks, but Strange can give you a solid floor here. You guys know I was big on recommending Jalen Coker. Unfortunately, he is out, and with Adam Thielen traded, this should ensure Xavier Legette is the clear second look in this offense. The Panthers re-signed Hunter Renfrow, and David Moore should see an uptick in volume as well, but Legette is the player I would lean towards. I wouldn't necessarily start him this week. In the vast majority of leagues, this is more of a depth ad and getting ahead just in case he does have a strong week. Coker's injury is a multi-week issue. Legette could provide value in the weeks to come. I have talked extensively about Ollie Gordon over the past few weeks. Jalen Wright's timeline isn't exactly known, but regardless of the injury timeline, the reality is Gordon outperformed Wright all preseason very handedly. I'm not gonna lie, Gordon had to win me over here. He doesn't fit that typical Miami running back build. Mike McDaniel likes them little and quick. That's a fact. Gordon is the exact opposite, but perhaps that actually opens up more opportunity here. When Tyreek Hill was talking about using Jalen Wright as the goal line back instead of Devon Achane, I kind of chuckled, like, okay. But Gordon over Achane at the goal line does actually make logical sense. Additionally, Achane is going to be active in week 1, but rostering the handoff to a guy that is coming off of a injury during the preseason and a high-powered offense is a very good strategy. You are not starting this week for Gordon. You are stashing him. This is one of the more precarious waiver wire ads. I'm not going to lie here. We are getting news out of Cleveland that Quinshon Judkins is coming back with the team this week or could be back with the team this week. I struggle to see a scenario where a rookie running back who missed preseason is suddenly going to be inserted as the starter in week 1. I could be wrong. But the most likely scenario here is that we see Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson lead the way. Ford is a solid back, but from the team's preseason usage, it seems like Sampson would operate as the lead back this week in a matchup where Cleveland would be chasing points and Sampson could thrive from a receiving perspective. Play this one by ear. And then also remember that Sampson would still have the opportunity for third down work once Judkins is the starter. Woody Marks is not an ad for streaming this week. This is a long-term ad. Joe Mixon is out for the next 4 weeks at least, and Nick Chubb is the lead back. Adding Woody Marks is playing the long game here. I would not expect him to have significant usage early. You are adding him as a high upside handcuff behind a running back in Joe Mixon that we have no faith will even play this season, and a running back in Nick Chubb who has not played a full season since 2022. The math is pretty simple on this one. Yes, Dameon Pierce is there, but it is better to lean into youth rather than someone who already lost the job outright. Again, another add and stash for the future. The Patriots' current starting lineup is Stefon Diggs, Demario Douglas, and Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon had an excellent training camp and earned that spot, but apples to apples, I would expect Kyle Williams' talent to push through here. Additionally, while I was pro drafting Diggs at value, do not get me wrong on that, I had a very specific caveat with that. Prepare to trade Diggs 6 weeks in because it has legitimately been 3 seasons since we last saw him have a strong second half to the season. There is a very real scenario where Williams has an Amon-Ra St. Brown type of rookie season where he's fairly irrelevant to begin and then works his way into a weekly must start. Unlike Kyle Williams, who we are patiently waiting to bully his way into targets and for the eventual downfall of Stefon Diggs, Dont'e Thornton currently has a starting position. Adding Thornton this week is for a very specific reason. Of all the players on this list, he has the highest chance of going off through catching a huge deep ball and becoming the must-add waiver wire player of the week. I wouldn't consider him a contender to start in your flex this week, even in very deep leagues, because I've talked about this before. He screams Rashid Shaheed, which I love, but that's not a risk that you want to take in week 1. Grab him now and be glad that you did in case he blows up. Now, we didn't get to see it for an extended period of time because Cedric Tillman suffered an injury in week 12, but for that very short period of time between his injury and the Amari Cooper trade, it was glorious. It was so glorious. I am talking wide receiver 8 overall glorious in the 4 games that he started in full. It's a tiny sample size, right? And Cleveland's quarterback situation isn't ideal, and we cannot trust this organization to not blatantly tank, but Cedric Tillman is for real. Take a chance and add him. If Joe Flacco has even just a little juice left in him, Tillman is a guy you'll want to roster. Christian Kirk is actually a week 1 streaming option in deep leagues, but this is another case of a grab and stash so that you don't have to spend your money on him next week. Christian Kirk is the slot receiver for the Texans. That's been good volume with CJ Stroud. Now, the Texans did have a change in offensive coordinator, so we can't make a direct role comparison to the production that Stefon Diggs had in the slot with the Texans last season, but I am very confident that Kirk should see a solid amount of volume this season. Effective utilization of the slot will likely remain a big piece of the Texans offense, and Kirk should have solid weekly value and a solid floor and be a viable flex option throughout this season. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Tara Time, so make sure that you are subscribed and tuned in because I am bringing you fantasy football advice all season long. Every single week, I'll be talking about my top waiver wire ads, have live shows with Q&A where you can ask me questions, and I've got DFS for you. It's going to be a fun season.